yeah, there aren't. That was the thing that would get repeated constantly in Michelin star restaurants is that, like, that can't happen here. And you're just like, but this is a very human moment, like a person like falling down, trying to carry something, like that's a very human moment. And it's like, ooh, but that can't happen here. And in a real restaurant, I'm using air quotations, listening at home. Yeah, that happens all the time. Way worse shit happens. Like all kinds of shit happens. And you see a lot of very human moments that I think often feel not allowed. And to your audience, I think when you come into a hotel that is just opulent and extraordinary and over the top, like a lot of times the people who've spent time creating those experiences think that they're going to put you at ease immediately, but there is a real finesse that has to happen because it can be so nice that people feel unworthy and like they don't experience it. So really, really good hospitality is being able to like offer them this insane place to be and also being like, and you're welcome to be here. And I really mean that.
This is going to be a great show. Welcome, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. I don't get asked to be on podcasts a lot, which is odd to me, but I also don't get asked to go to weddings a lot. I don't get invited to people's weddings. And I'm not married, technically. I said my husband earlier, but that was just like a formality to make you guys comfortable because it's easy than explaining.
Earlier when we never spoke.
Yeah, what do you, I mean, like in a dream?
Oh, sorry. Like, and when we connected, like telepathically before the show, just kind of like vibing, hanging out in cyberspace, vibing. I never got married. I never had a wedding. I think people think I don't respect the sanctity of marriage, which isn't true, but it's also something I never did. And I don't get invited to them. And then I have my own podcast and no one really invites me on their podcast. So I thank you.
That's actually a shocker to me because I think the first thing that we said in our emails, not in a pre-show of any kind, but was that I love your radio voice. It's so NPR-y. And like I said to Greg when I first came across your show, I was like, why can't we do this? Like, why can't we have that level? And then, so now I found out that you went to school for sound.
Yeah, I studied sound engineering. I have always played in bands. I'm a classically trained pianist since I was very young. And I was like working in food and bev the whole time, just since high school on. I've never had another job, but it was flexible schedules for me to play in bands. And I wanted to learn how to record my friends' bands and my band. And so I took a like tech school course. And then eventually I transferred to Berklee School of Music in Boston, where I promptly dropped out recording people's bands.
Right.
So I'm like very into sound and making things sound good. And that's why this, never mind. I'm not going to talk about it, but I'm like, any sort of technical difficulties, like make me feel so bad. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is my fault. I'm making this happen somehow.
So what kind of band music did you play?
Well, band music. I played, I was in like indie, like synthy. I'm keys, so I definitely was into more like weird, like synth organ sounds. Like I was like an indie rock kind of gal. But I really like my favorite band of all time is Nirvana, and just kind of like grungier, heavier stuff. I just could not play guitar, so I was like, well, this is what I have to do. Play some weird organ solo. And I still play music, but I still do a lot of performing in all kinds of ways. But food and bev always allowed me to do that kind of stuff, and so gradually I got more into food and bev for a while, and then now I've kind of brought them all full circle, and they all kind of happen.
Now you're doing everything at one time.
Yeah, except working in a restaurant. Like I just have to say, I'm not currently working in a restaurant. So can I even be on HospitalityMD? Can I?
Well, hospitality is everybody's business. So
I also shut it down, and Tom says hospitality is everywhere all the time. And
I guess we're not aligned at all in any way, shape, or form on your mission versus your culture. But
things a lot smoother.
Yeah. But we actually were having this conversation like amongst ourselves during the pandemic, because it was like, and I'm not going to name any names. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. And I'm not even talking about you. Like, I'm talking about people. Like, there's this hospitality, like, media community, particularly like on LinkedIn and stuff like that, where former people who are working in the business are still saying that they're in the business, but they're not, and they're doing media about it. And like, my hypothetical question is like, after how long is it acceptable? Like, to what point can you still...
Can I do one more?
But what I love about you, and this is, I was telling Tom, I'm actually upset that because yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever, I was saying to them that I wanted to be the one to tell you how great your voice is, to make you kind of uncomfortable and break the ice right off the bat. But that's already been said. So now I'm going to tell you that your self-awareness, like, that comes across on your show and everything, and even right now, is very endearing. And I think that's the difference between you and these unnamed people that I'm not going to name, but you know who you are.
It gets a little bit...
There's no acknowledgement. It's like, we all know that you're not in the business anymore. Like, we're all seeing this, but when are you going to acknowledge it? And after how long is this still authentic?
And that's not even the thing too. It's like, it's about authenticity, and being on stage is about authenticity, and being a performer, being in hospitality it's all about authenticity. So I think part of the sentiment that you're getting at, Kyle, is like, some people will just kind of fake it in a way that's not genuine. And I think that's why I was so kind of, my eye was caught on your show, because I was like, wow, like, I'm genuinely enjoying these episodes where, like, it's like there's sections where it's just really funny.
It's barely about the industry at all.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's just kind of like, it's just like a radio show almost. And I think
it's like
that's
a diary of like anecdotes that are like, you find a way to tie it together.
So let me tell you about how I listened to your show for the first time. So Tom texts Kyle and I like, hey, there's, take a look at this podcast. We have her on as a guest. So like, cool, I'll listen to it on my ride home. 20 minutes later, there's a calendar invite that you're going to be on the show. So I'm like, oh shit, okay, I really need to listen to an episode. So on my drive home,
available I am. That's what I'm saying. Nobody asked me, so when people do, I'm like, absolutely, like, now good.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm free in 10. If that works for you guys.
And my ring light.
Yeah. So on my ride home, your latest episode at the time was your episode 229, How Frigidaire of You.
Oh, that's a long point for me, honestly.
So, well, here's the thing. I play the podcast. I have like a 25-minute drive around that time to get home. And I think that episode was right under that for me. And you spent
20
the first
minutes, in case anyone's wondering.
Well, the first 15 minutes, you talked about making a stromboli. Oh. And that was one of the most entertaining segments I've ever listened to, because I listen to Kyle. Well, Kyle loves to talk, right? He talks and will talk your ear off. He'll talk to a lamp for about 45 minutes. But I'm not always entertained. But I was so entertained, and when you were done talking, I'm like, wow, it's really been 15 minutes. Like I can't believe it. It was very entertaining, and it made me want to try a stromboli because I never had one before.
Well, so let's kind of like put the plot twist on the story. So Greg listens to a couple more episodes, and then at some point, like the third episode in, he realizes that he had you on 2 times speed. So really, you were talking about stromboli for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
She takes a lot of pauses, actually.
Yeah, it was actually at a 1.2 speed, and I'm like, man, she talks pretty fast. But I'm like, I'm here for it. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's at 1.2. So I put it at 1, and it wasn't the same. So I put you back at 1.2 when I listened to the episode.
I think that's a cool. I always want. So I edit podcasts for a living now, and it really limits my ability to listen to podcasts that I like elect to listen to. But I wish I could edit in 1.5 speed. You know what I mean? Because I have to like edit in real time, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's all these pregnant pauses. My clients, I don't edit my own show anymore because I'm just like, I can't. I
Can't listen to yourself.
Yeah, and I literally can't edit another thing, especially because I'm like, are you gonna pay me? You? So I just don't do it. But yeah, there's a lot of pauses. But that's funny because I'm always wondering if people do listen in like faster, or if it messes up their flow, or if the jokes still land, But it sounds like they do.
Oh, they still do. They definitely do.
Thanks.
I'm like, man. And then, well, I think where I really caught that I was watching or listening to it faster was when you had Robert Pratt on the show. And I'm like, why does he talk fast too? Like something's wrong here.
Hurry. Robert is, oh my God, that was a wild show. I was getting ready to record on my own, and he was just texting me, and I was kind of like, I don't know what I want to say about this. I know what I want to say, but I don't feel like I can get a handle on it and talk about it with myself. And he was just like, happened to text me, and we're old friends from per se in those days. And actually, if you listen to the show, you know that he also worked at Noma for free for a little bit.
Right.
So he was the perfect person. I was like, this is amazing that you're texting me right now. Like, can you jump on in 10? And he was like, yes. So that's how that came to be.
So he also doesn't get asked.
He also
Has nothing going on.
Well, no, he has a fun Instagram channel going on now, doing
Yeah,
cooking demos.
He's amazing, Robert. He's incredible. The amount of videos he's been putting out, and how good they are, and how actually like funny they are to watch, and the recipes are really good. It's amazing.
Yeah, and how does he have time to do one like every day?
I don't know. I mean, he knocks them out. I think I can't really tell if he's actually working. He worked for King in New York for a long time, and then he was kind of doing some stuff at Chez Matant, which he lovingly calls Shave Matant, which I love. And but I think that he's like just doing videos. So he must have like a trust fund or something. I don't know how he's just making that much content, because it is so time consuming, and he makes it look very easy.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So to wrap it full circle to what we were talking about, you're authentic at what you do.
Thank you. That's good.
And yeah, I think that was the main thing. But if you have the hospitality in your heart, you can still be in it. And self-awareness and authenticity goes a long way. As you can tell, I'm not, there's certain things that people are doing that I'm like, you're never going to acknowledge, your absence, I suppose, from the industry. Or to me, I suppose maybe it feels like an abandonment, if you will, for some people. Like, you've left it, but you're capitalizing on it still. And it just feels like, my spidey senses are tingling. But that's also just because I need to keep doing it. Like, even during the pandemic, when we weren't working, we were going ham on HospitalityMD. And that's when this conversation started of like, man, is it even so authentic anymore? Like, we're not even working, even knowing that like nobody was, because it was the pandemic, but there was still an anxiety about it.
It's so hard on yourself. Like, the whole world's shut down. Okay.
Right. Like, that's kind of what it was. It was like, okay, well, just take a step back. But then it was like immediately, at least for me, I felt like I need to get back into it because I feel like I'm losing my edge or something. And like, I need to be in that environment. For me,
that's one of my biggest fears. And also, like, one of the weirdest things, because I started EffinB Radio when I still worked in food and beverage. This is like its 7th year.
Wow.
So it's been around, and it used to have 3 hosts, and it was like that for like 2 or 3 years. And we were all in the industry, and the podcast got started because of the behind the scenes, like inner baseball, like talk, whatever that word is, insider baseball. And at my boyfriend, who's not my husband, but I call my husband, he was like, someone would listen to this. Like, this is really interesting. Like, the stories were just funny because it would just be mostly, honestly, about guests or like shit that happened in your station or things that went down in the restaurant that night. And then we started opening it up to like bringing on guests and people who were like kind of running the beat in Charleston, like new restaurant would open and they would be like, hey, can we get this chef on your show? And so it kind of went like that organically and really started to pick up speed. And then somewhere along the way, like the two hosts, one of them moved, Philip Michael Cohen, who is my forever, like he's actually he moved to Hudson and he was working in restaurants for a while. And then Nikki Fairman, who was the other co-host, she still is an event planner at a place here in Charleston. But I'm sure you guys know it gets like hard to just keep doing the show. It's a lot of work. A podcast, people think it's like very easy to just like turn on a microphone and like, oh, that's so fun. You must really enjoy that. And you do love it. But it is like, wow, the week comes up fast. And you're like, I got to have another show. And we got to, it ends up being work that people are like, I don't know, they just couldn't hang on. And I was just not willing to let it go. So I started talking just on my own about stuff while still working in it. And then I had my third son and I went on my maternity leave, which was just quitting the job that I had at that time. And I never got another job in food and beverage because I had people in town asking me if I could help them start a podcast.
And how long ago was that?
That was
like, when was your last restaurant job? 2018?
Yeah.
Nice.
So you can't do any more episodes. You're done.
Yeah, you're canceled. Actually, we're officially canceling you right now.
I'm canceled. I mean, I think about it all the time because I'm like, I haven't set foot in a restaurant. I didn't work through the pandemic. Like, there was just all of this guilt about like what was going on, and at the same time, like, I don't know, like, not that nothing ever changes, but there are some things that fundamentally stay the same that I think you can always weigh in on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you're talking about hospitality, maybe not the current landscape, like that, you will not be in it. If you're not in it, you don't really know how to speak on it. And that's why my focus has kind of shifted with the show to more like an inner monologue / jokes about either previous stories and things that have happened to me or like experiences that shape me, or honestly, just what's happening in my life right now. And it still weirdly all revolves around food.
Yeah. So the episode that I listened to of your show to like get to know you a little bit was where you talked about how like going out isn't the same anymore. And like that kind of, I can't remember what it was called, but that was like the story that you were telling. And I feel like you found your niche, like talking about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because like, yeah, you don't have to know like what the current cost of lump crab is to like be able to weigh in on that type of experience. But
in a way, I think that like restaurants are different entirely than hotels, in that like a lot of the conversations that we have in hospitality, it has a lot. There's always this like backdrop of the numbers. You know what I mean? There's always this backdrop of revenue. There's always this backdrop of like, obviously we love to talk about the guest experience, but a lot of the there's always a portion of the conversation that goes back to like the business of hospitality. And like, I don't know, I feel like restaurants, it's just it's a lot easier to talk about like the fun experience.
Because they're all losing money. So it's like,
because you're on the floor. Yeah.
We don't want to go there.
There's also like a whole marketing coming.
Let's not bring the numbers up.
One thing that I love about EffinB people is like, you guys know the names of famous chefs. You guys know the names of like famous restaurants and are kind of like aware of like all these kind of cool restaurants that are opening. And there's not a whole lot of like famous GMs to follow. There's a couple of them. Kyle and Greg and I know one of them. Kyle works with
that laugh.
Me.
Talking about Will Gadara. No, I'm not.
But like, I feel like there's just like this weird, different world kind of an element to that. And I think that there's something more fun about that, and also like something less relevant to actually working about that too. Because like you can still be a fanboy, fangirl, and not literally like, be serving tables every night too.
That's deep.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. But I also like, I say this all the time and it's not a joke. I really do miss it. And I kind of wish, I just didn't mean I've never, like, people think I'm joking when I say I've never had another job besides waiting tables. And I'm 37 years old. And So, I mean, I never even sat at a desk. I never temped anywhere. I was not a babysitter. Like maybe once I was babysat, but that ended quickly. And like, I just have, it's the only thing I've ever known and the only thing I ever felt good at and really loved doing. And so when it accidentally went away, because I was like kind of discarded by the hospitality industry, I left the French Laundry and a job there because when they realized I was pregnant, they couldn't really find a place for me, and they didn't fire me, but they just made it hard for me to make money until I was like, I have to leave. And it was really hard because I was like, what? Like I'm a coast to coast transfer stat, like all-star scholarship winning, like drink the Kool-Aid, diehard lover of this world. And having a kid was something that was really important to me. And it kind of happened earlier than I expected it to. But there was just no way I could keep up working in the kitchen in a Michelin star restaurant and be a new mom. And I don't think that has really changed. You know, I think there's other options and there's more visibility around maternity leave being something that you have to offer formally. But at that time in 2011, yeah, is that how you say that? 2011, there wasn't an option for that. So I kind of kept like taking a pause, starting my career over, relocating to being closer to family, which is in Charleston, having another baby. By the time I had my third boy, who's now 4 years old, Roman, I was just like, I don't think I can start over again. Like I was pretty worn down by the lack of options. And I didn't really blame the industry because I love and live it and breathe it so hard that I was kind of like, I know that it's not like the industry abandoned me as much as like I don't fit there anymore with where my life is going. You know what I mean? Like you can't work service and serve dinner and sit down for dinner with your kids, which is something that's important to me. At the pace that I was working.
You can't be in two places at once. Like that's not.
No.
There's nothing wrong with the industry that dinner is at 6 o'clock at home and it is for everyone dining in your dining room at the restaurant. Like there's that's not a fault of the industry. That's not a fault of you. That's just life. And life is.
I just got to kind of like do it. When that opportunity came up, I was like, I guess I'm out of the industry, but I still have the podcast. And so it was like it took me a really long time to like, and I still have a lot of imposter syndrome in both places. Because I don't really kind of feel like a fish out of water, and no matter where I am, where I'm like, I'm not really in media. I never wanted to be in food media. But last night I went to a restaurant opening and it was so clear to me. I like came home when I told my Jeremy, I was like, there wasn't anybody that I knew from that worked in the industry. It was restaurant owners and it was food media. And that always kind of hurts my heart. And also is like, you kind of have to accept where you are now, which is whatever. I'm in food media, I guess.
Welcome to food media. It has been ordained. You are now here.
Yeah, but I do that kind of stuff a lot. And then I always look around and I'm like, these aren't my people, you know, like I'm in a weird place, but then there are restaurant owners and a bunch of chefs there. And I'm like, those are my people. And this town is such a small town. And so it's a really close knit community. But I was aware that there weren't like friends of mine that I had waited tables with and bartended. They weren't at this party. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, that's hard for me because I wasn't like, hell yeah, I'm on the other side. It's more of like, oh man, I'm on the other side. It's hard.
Yeah, I can relate to you pretty heavily with the imposter syndrome on both sides of the aisle, because I never intended on being in hospitality really at all. I was going to film school in Chicago at Columbia College Chicago to study film directing and public relations. And in my sophomore year of college, I'm on my way to a filmmaker's meet and greet. And my mom texts me at the time because she knows that I need to get a job. And she says, there's a job fair going on the way to the meet and greet that you're going to. I was already dressed. Yeah, I was already dressed up. She just texted me the address and I showed up. I didn't have my resume on me, just kind of popped in. But what I did have was my folder that had my script supervision notes in there, and a script supervisor on set is it's the the person that ensures continuity between scenes. So though they might be shooting this portion of the diner in November, when they walk out of the diner, that might be in April. So the script supervisor has to take detailed notes and photos of the shoot that they had in November and make sure that the lens matches, make sure that the clothing matches. The scarf was on the shoulder on this take, and the scarf was on this shoulder on the next take. So I had that with me. And I went down to sit for this interview. Turns out that the entire job fair was hiring just for one hotel, which was a brand new construction. It's the first tri-branded Hilton in the world here in Chicago. And I sit down for this interview. I apparently do pretty well. So she grabs this other guy to sit down with me, and we're talking. Now this other guy is like 2 years older than me. So I'm just like, there's a generational like connection there. So I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm a lot more open about what I have. And I'm like, I kind of like probably blur the line a little bit. Like I start cursing a little bit. Like I'm a little bit more informal.
You start smoking a cigarette. That's your hire.
Yeah.
But it turns out the guy that I was talking to was the son of the owner of the management company that I was being hired for.
Right.
Oh, love that.
So I was like, okay, great. Well, apparently I got hired anyways. Point is, to bring it full circle, I didn't even know that it was for a hotel. You know what I mean? Like I was just there because my mom wanted me to get a job.
Your ignorance just brought you to the finish line.
I just kind of stumbled through the whole thing. So then I've stayed in hotels since then.
Wow.
And I'm currently working for a luxury property downtown Chicago in the sales team. But I always felt like this 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing, because it's not an industry that I ever wanted to go into. I might have done relatively well in the various roles that I've had in the industry. Greg can attest that I completely failed at the property that we were at together. But
I concur.
We all failed.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can tell you.
No, but like I never meant to be in hospitality. I've always wanted the media side. I've always wanted to do, film, podcasting, TV, that editing, that stuff, and advertising. That stuff's interesting. So it feels like the hospitality side is like a means to an end. I'm just kind of like staying in hospitality until I can figure out something that works on the media side. And then that makes me feel like an imposter on the media side, because I go to like the parties with my old filmmaker friends from college, and they're like, "Oh, so you work at a hotel?" I'm like, "Yeah, I work at a hotel."
Oh, I feel you. It's really, I've always been into performing, and so like I wanted to be an actor, or I wanted to write music, or I was in theater from an early age, and like I just any excuse to get on stage. I'm a middle child, so it's just like you're desperate for attention, and I found waiting tables to be performative. Not like, if you mean it in a genuine way, I don't mean like I was pretending to them, but I mean like you do have the floor, right? When you're
literally,
you kind of run your section, and for a second people kind of have to listen to you. And so I love that aspect, and I like to get people on my side, and I mostly like to get them exactly what they don't even know they want. And I love to just, it's like a magic trick, and you can like just hand them this beautiful experience. And I saw how you could literally like bring someone to tears or change their day. And I was like, even if it's a small audience, I'll take it. What are you, a four-top? Come here. I will. Like I love that emotional element. It felt like giving a performance that moves someone, or creating a film that someone is just like really, really into. The whole experience is an art form. And so I think those are all really connected. And I don't think that working in hospitality does anything except make you better at all of those things that you're also interested in. So it's hard when you're trying to tell people what you are. I struggle with this all the time. My husband is a painter, and he's an incredible painter. And like, he just gets better at painting. And I'm like, God, I'm so jealous of that, because I'm just this, I'm always this thing. And I'm like kind of getting good at that, but I'm always doing some version of it, but working in restaurants made me 100% better than anything I could have ever done to prepare for all of those things that I am also now good at.
That's such a mind blow moment for me because I didn't know what it meant to be a hotel worker. I didn't go to hospitality school or anything like that. So what I was doing was I was thinking about hotel clerks and front desk and bellman and things like that from TV shows and movies that I had seen. And at the time, I was actually taking a class called Actors and Directors Workshop, where the concept is, in order to be a good director, you need to know what it's like to be an actor. And so I was taking literal acting classes. And so here I was at the front desk of this hotel for the first time. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to act like the best front desk agent that I can possibly imagine from any TV show.
Home Alone at the
Yes.
Yeah, I'm that guy.
And so here I am, I'm operating, and everybody's like, "Wow, you've never done this before?" Like, I just saw it on TV, man. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm pretending to know what I'm doing. I'm putting on a good face. That's the whole point.
There was this one of the first job in my town, which is like a 2 stoplight, 3,000 people total town. There was this little cafe, and there was a chef there, and she was experienced, but she was definitely like from a soul food restaurant and was just like no fuss, no like, and I was mimicking stuff I had seen on TV. So I was like, oh, 86 means like, don't put that on there. And we were handwriting our tickets. And I was like, I wrote cheeseburger, 86 tomatoes. And like, as soon as I hung it up, she like snatched it off the thing. And she was like, you want 86 tomatoes? And I was like, no, I meant like no tomatoes, right? And she was like, don't fucking put this stuff in my window ever again. And I was like, okay.
Oh, that's a great story.
Bites you in the ass, but I learned really quickly. I was like, okay, that means like we're out of it. Not like, that's not how I write a ticket. Like I had to learn the hard way. Then I had waited tables for a long time after that. And I was working in Boston at this very fancy restaurant in Cambridge called Upstairs in the Square. And this very nice man came in and he was a regular. And he said that he ordered his food and he was like, yeah, I'll have the green goddess salad and the steak. And then I'll have, a perfect Manhattan. And I was like, sir, we'll do the best we can. And he was like, what? Like, you'll do the best. He laughed so hard because he could see how serious I was. I was like, I'll be right back with your perfect steak too. Oh my God, what an asshole. Like, just like so naive. Yeah, you learn so much, but you do have to fake it till you make it. And honestly, like there's a huge element of performing because in Charleston, it's such a small town that like I would wait on a table and be this like all-star, like just have them wrapped around my finger and then be hung over the next day in the street, like smoking a cigarette, like hanging out while they were walking by, like on a ghost tour. And they were like, are you listening last night? And I'm like, nah, no, not out here. No, you got to pay for that.
Yeah, there's a certain, I guess, fluidity to that lifestyle and to the idea that some people, like your Jeremy, have this thing like painting, where they're a painter. And it's like they know that and they identify with that and they're comfortable with that and they can make it work. Whereas like sometimes other people, I consider myself in and out of this zone where you kind of have a hard time finding your footing, or you kind of have a hard time like identifying with a certain career path or identifying with a certain, hobby or activity. And that's okay too. You just have to understand that that's life,
That's
and that's
a beautiful thing.
and it's beautiful to experience.
Well, that's what I hate. When I got to college, even though I was specialized in like certain areas of the arts and I knew that I wanted to do that, when they didn't like that as an option, when I said I wanted to be an actor, they were like, no, like what's your career path? And I was like, no, that's what I'm trying to do. And they were like, no, pick something different. And I just thought that was such a hard thing to ask a 17-year-old kid. And also like restaurants became this really safe place for me to just like get better at skills that were super useful and immediately made my life better and made me better at doing things and interacting with people and understanding people, like an extreme psychology course, like that you just can't get from any school. Waiting tables. I'm like, it's such a safe space to not have a goal. Like everyone thinks they're like, how did you get to NOMA or the French Laundry? Was that like your dream? And I'm like, no, I literally didn't know who Thomas Keller was when I went to the interview. I was just applying at every place in New York because no one would hire me. And like, I like the safeness of hospitality where it's like, you don't have to have a goal necessarily to be like excel at it and to really find direction. It saved my whole like trajectory, I think, because it wasn't so like, you want to be a lawyer, you better start doing this kind of law stuff. Like it was just very like, what are you good at? And then they would see where to move you. And I moved through every role in every single place that I ever worked and learned so much and got to like really crazy places like NOMA and was just like, yeah, I'm as surprised as all of you. Like this was not my fault.
Yeah, I really like that sentiment a lot. There's no pressure to have a goal. There's no pressure of anything in the hospitality business except to just like do your job basically. Like, I don't know. Do you follow like these like restaurant meme pages and like other stuff like that? Do you keep up with that kind of stuff?
Like the Sussmans?
I'm not on that one. But like I follow like culinary meme pages and stuff like that. Have you ever get into
the only one I follow is the Sussmans, and it's Eli Sussman out of New York, and it's pretty like side-splittingly insanely funny. Like,
is that the gentleman that you had on your podcast not too long ago? I
don't know if he's listening to this, but he was not that funny on the podcast. I was like, dude, I thought you were funny.
I don't know.
You're not funny.
This is the first episode that I listened to. I was chuckling, so he was okay.
Right.
Well, like these people be on there like, you know, like 3 rules for my kitchen, like never sacrifice quality for speed, never sacrifice speed for quality, and a hangover is not an excuse. And like that's the only like law that exists in the hospitality industry is like that kind of doctrine. Which is like, I think like we can all get on board with that. Like that's totally fine. And whether that's in the kitchen or there's a different doctrine for the front of house or whatever, but it's always that simple. Like show the fuck up, do your job, be cool with people, and you know, basically don't cause drama and go home. And that's like where people are thriving in this business.
Exactly.
And that's all it has to be.
Ours was my like rules for hiring someone when I started like weighing in on the new hires. I would just be like, show up and don't suck. Like that's it. If you can do those 2 things, like, you will crush it here. And the restaurant will give to you if you just do these very simple things. Like that's it.
And it's like this non-judgmental thing. Like in any other world, like if you were a lawyer, right? And again, maybe lawyers chime in if you're listening. I know this is your favorite afternoon thing to listen to. But if you're a lawyer and you go out after work and you smoke a pack of cigarettes and drink a whole bunch of stuff and you show up the next day and you look like shit, you're reeking of bad decisions, and you'll probably be looked at in the judgmental eye by your peers. If you're in a restaurant or a hotel and you do that, no one gives a fuck as long as you don't make their life harder that day.
Well, they were probably there with you.
Right, or they were there with you, and yeah, that actually is probably more likely the story. But the next day when you show up, whatever sins you committed doesn't matter as long as you don't make my life hard today.
Right. Thomas Keller in the kitchen where this like one line cook just literally went down, like passed out, like he was super hungover and stressed out and collapsed and fell on the ground. And Thomas just like steps right over him and is like, now I have to do your job too. Like just not even mad, just like, oh God, no, as long as you could have stayed on your feet, like it would have been fine. Yeah. Just don't make my job harder. That is the only thing. And I don't know. It always ended up making me just feel more confident. And on the sneak, I was learning sales. I was learning communication. I was learning how people's minds work, how relationship dynamics play into sales, and like things like that were just so valuable and serve me to this day. Like I built.
You're an entrepreneur now.
Right.
And you were in.
And that's the wildest thing.
That's all it was.
Yeah. I'm like, it taught me to be independent instead of being like, you go to work at a place and you work there for 30 years. Like you're mostly just doing your time. And that's admirable too. That's what my dad did. And like, it's amazing. I'm like, just for hanging in there that long, like you should get fat retirement. Like, please treat yourself. But it's like the ability, I always felt like I was just, showing up, and they gave me a place to make money. They gave me a place that was an opportunity to make money. And it was kind of up to me how much I made or didn't make. But I like that independence. And it built me like entrepreneurial skill set that I could not have gotten anywhere else doing any sort of formal training. And it's authentic to me. Like it doesn't come from a script. I always feel when I said that, going out isn't the same anymore, I think it's because now they're pulling in a lot of people who didn't have hospitality in their heart. They're just trying to get a warm body in there, and they're giving them a script, and that always comes through. But when you have to like hone your skills yourself, even though I got plenty of training. I mean, like I got corporate training per se, like you
got that Red Lobster shit. Like,
Red Lobster. Sure.
Yeah.
Dude, like, I worked at the California Dreaming, and it was most similar to per se. Like it was almost identical in terms of how they ran that kitchen. And I was like, wow, this is weird. Cause I used to make fun of California Dreaming when I had worked in like mom and pop restaurants coming up. And then I got there and they were like calling for hands, and they had an expediter, and they locked you into positions, and there was like a brigade system, and you had to polish based on there was just all these systems and protocols in place. And I was like, wow, these people are so serious at this California Dreaming. But it was a tight ship, and it actually helped me not be so shocked when I got to per se and was just like, what is happening? I had a hard enough time fitting in there anyway. And it was a real struggle for a long time. But once I got it, it was like plug and play. I could go to any Michelin star restaurant, and I was like, oh, okay. I see the rules of engagement. Like I get it.
In terms of, so I just want to, because I'm not totally clear on your background. So you waited tables and you were in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Cool.
I waited tables the whole time pretty much. And then around my second year at per se, I had been promoted to expediter. So I was only in the kitchen unless I had to pop out, but really I was pretty locked in. And so I didn't go in the dining room anymore. And I was happy with that. So happy, in fact, that I was like just watching what they did all night. And I was like, oh man, I want that. I don't want to just stand here and like call tickets. I want to like try that. And I was very into food and very into eating. Like that was just the hobby. Like when you work in those kind of places, like you work just to go eat at places on your day off and then like come back to work. And so I asked, could I like start coming in on my one day off? I was working 6 days a week, and could I come in on my one day off and stage in the kitchen? And they were like, yeah. Like by that point I had made my like way, and I was a well-liked member of the team. And they're like, yeah, I'm super high energy, and I love to like play the game and like do the dance. And it felt very much like sports to me, where I've never been good at sports, but I was like, this is like, I can take the ball and run. And they let me come in and just like commis. And then I won a scholarship at per se, where I was wanting to compare and contrast Michelin star restaurants in the US versus Europe, because I felt like people were always shitting on the US Michelin star. They're like, oh, it's not real Michelin star. Like there was like this distinction between like French Michelin stars and, New York Michelin stars or whatever. And so I was kind of prepping for that trip because I was going to be in both the back of house and the front of house. And I just wanted to like learn some basic knife skills because I had never gone to culinary school or anything like that. So they helped me kind of get up to speed before I went on my scholarship to Notre Dame. Yeah, and when I came back from Noma, I spent the majority of the time. I did about 3 days total in the dining room, but I didn't like it. It was intensely high pressure. Like it was like, yeah, and very, very, very intense. And speaking of hospitality school, those people take it super seriously. Like they start from college, like they were there, studying hospitality. Everyone that worked there it's like a prerequisite in Denmark. So you don't even like set foot through those doors unless you've been to hospitality school. And so I was very much like, dude, I don't fucking know. Like I had a hard time even my background at per se, and I sort of gravitated more towards the kitchen, even though I didn't have any real experience. So when I got back, I was like, I asked Chef Keller if I could train and switch. And he was like, that's kind of a big jump. But he was like, you can go, I think if you're going to make a move like that, I support it. I just think you need to start at the French Laundry and like really start from the beginning. Like you have to like relearn everything. And I mean, or just learn it, not even relearn it, but learn it from that side. And so I transferred after I left New York, after I got back from there, because I was so just like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a chef. And then I got out to California and I was so bad at it. Like I was just so bad at it. My energy and my ability to function in the systems was A+. Like I could make dough, but even to this day, when people come to my house, like I'm a mess. Like I'm just a mess. I never got past the place where I was just behind all the time and sweating and fucking stuff up and getting sent home for burning the huge pot of French onions that were going in the soup. Like they started me at Bouchon, and then I moved up to the French Laundry, and then I got a permanent station as a commis that was working garde-manger.
This is our restaurant GM. That's DJ. He's the GM of our restaurant.
Famous
Hey,
GM.
DJ, we're
How
talking
are you?
about her experience working in Michelin-starred restaurants.
Oh wow,
Yeah. So she's dope.
that's insane. That's insane. So
Well, I hear you're a famous GM, so I'm glad.
that's Craig Pohl. It's a little different.
Yeah, but I just was like, this is not going well. I was really kind of like, oh, my dreams have been dashed. Like I'm not good at this naturally. And then I realized that I was pregnant with Julian. And so it was kind of like there wasn't I was out of time. And I moved back and started waiting tables again after he was born. And that's when I got really, really, really good at sales and really fell in love. I went back to front of house because I was like, I need the front of house money. And I worked at a restaurant called Fig here in Charleston that is still to this day one of my favorite restaurants anywhere. And I started to fall in love with the idea of being in a real restaurant. Like that was a hard transition for me. Because I was really snotty about it, I think accidentally first. I was just like, what? Like the standards had shifted in such a really stark way. Not the quality or like things weren't good there, but like it just wasn't, you're not playing on that huge stage like you are at a place like the French Laundry or something like that. It just was more like a real place where there were just people living their lives and like doing the best they could, but not to try to earn Michelin stars. And I had a hard time with that at first. And then it ended up being like a place for me to really heal from all of that. Like, that's just not reality. Michelin stars are like insane, and those restaurants are amazing, but that is a whole nother realm that isn't really, everybody's reality. But
I'm like,
that was a captivating story. I just had to tell you that. Very.
Thank you, Kyle.
And,
You should hear the Stromboli story if you like that story.
Wait till the Stromboli comes through.
That was very captivating.
There's an ode for Stromboli in there. I'm telling you, go back.
I have a question. So 2 out of 3 of your children's names have been disclosed so far, and they both start with J. Does your 3rd child's name start with J?
No, actually, Jeremy is my partner. So
Jeremy's
the boyfriend husband.
I thought you said I heard Jordan and Julian. at one point.
Julian is my oldest son, and
there's no
Jeremy.
Jordan at any point in time. Jordan was not mentioned.
There was nobody named Jordan ever, Kyle.
No.
Unfortunately.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, the others are Luca and Roman.
Oh, Jordan, Roman. It doesn't sound the same, but in my head it did.
Oh yeah, okay.
It rhymes, right? Roman, Jordan.
100%. Yes,
Yeah.
Roman.
It's there.
Roman's the baby.
But yeah, that was a great story. I think to I guess draw a comparison for the hotel people out there, just because I want to throw a bone to our audience who's
of course
probably a little overwhelmed right now because our audience doesn't they don't live in that food and beverage world so much as they do in the rooms world of hotels. So to draw the connection for everybody, like we've talked about this on the show before, where the Four Seasons and these luxury hotels that are in select markets across the country, that's not like, that doesn't mean that you're a hotelier because you've worked there. Like that doesn't, like, that's not representative of the hotel industry in the United States of America. The select service hotel on the side of the highway that services people who are traveling across the country, that's representative of the majority of the 54,000 hotel rooms or 540,000 hotel rooms or whatever the number is in the United States of America. So, and I think you're basically saying the same thing about these Michelin star restaurants. Like you were like, it's time to go work at a restaurant that people go to in the community that you're living in, that you can have regulars, and it's an experience that people can come back to time and time again. And you can make those connections with people and be yourself, rather than working in a non-representative environment, which I'm sure held a lot of value to you, but at the end of the day, maybe not what you wanted for your life.
Or maybe a world where, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe it's a world where it's okay to make a mistake every now and then.
Yeah, 100%.
It's okay to be human.
And that beach.
That's well said, because that was exactly it. I was like, this is wild. Like the people that come through the doors in Michelin star restaurants are like, those kind of properties, Four Seasons. Even though I always got confused because Relais and Chateau properties, like sometimes are also hotels and restaurants. You know what I mean? Like there's a crossover, like where it's like hotel restaurant. But that was the thing that would get repeated constantly in Michelin star restaurants, is that, like, that can't happen here. And you're just like, but this is a very human moment, like a person like falling down, trying to carry something, like that's a very human moment. And it's like, ooh, but that can't happen here. And in a real restaurant, I'm using air quotations, listening at home. Yeah, that happens all the time. Way worse shit happens. Like all kinds of shit happens. And you see a lot of very human moments that I think often feel not allowed. And to your audience, I think when you come into a hotel that is just opulent and extraordinary and over the top, like a lot of times the people who have spent time creating those experiences think that they're going to put you at ease immediately, but there is a real finesse that has to happen, because it can be so nice that people feel unworthy and like they don't experience it. So really, really good hospitality is being able to like offer them this insane place to be, and also being like, and you're welcome to be here. And I really mean that.
I just have to say something real quick, because I stayed at a really nice hotel, and I was staying on a team member rate for $75 for a Waldorf Astoria hotel, which is a high-end brand. And I pull up and they start opening my car door for me and take my shit. I'm like, wait, hold on. You don't know who I am yet. Stop. Please stop. You don't know. Once you find out,
once you look at the notes, the guest notes, you'll be like,
shove me back in the cart. Yeah. Like, so I totally understand. Like there's this new, I don't even know if it's new. I don't want to sound like I'm on the cutting edge of something that everyone already knows about, but this like concept of approachable luxury, where it's like, it has to be it has to be approachable for people, or else they're going to reject it. Because if you see the way the world is going with like people want to have DoorDash drop it off at your doorstep without ever seeing anybody, or they want this kind of stuff. Like, it's almost like people feel unworthy on a day-to-day basis of even like having an interaction with people in general. So like hyper luxury hospitality experiences have to like simmer down a little bit to like before the lowest common denominator experience you could have was a pizza delivery driver with a smile on his face, bringing you a pizza, making sure you got everything you need. It's still nice and hot and you're good to go. And that person worked for the restaurant that you ordered from. You paid the person directly. You had an interaction and then they left. That was the lowest common denominator experience.
Yeah.
Now the lowest common denominator is somebody who has no relation or accountability for the product that you're consuming, showing up, driving it in a vehicle that you have no idea what the conditions are, and with no accountability whatsoever, leaving it outside for you to receive probably the wrong order, cold. Yeah. And you have never meet anybody. There's no relationship, no engagement whatsoever. So now it's gone lower for people. So, but has luxury gone lower for people? I don't know. Maybe
can I just say really quick, by the way, like before it moves on too quickly, I think that something that Lindsay said was so profound and might be the answer to this question, that you've got this luxury experience, right? And this might be to the nines luxury experience that might be more traditional, right? But what is a crucial element of that asset of making sure that people come back again and again is that highly engaged, like you are welcome. Like it's we always talk about being welcoming at a hotel in general, but like it's that dedicated, like genuinely you are welcome to this experience.
And sometimes that means showing them like how to be in it, even if they're wealth doesn't necessarily mean they understand how to experience luxury and feel confident in that. It often does, but there have been plenty of people that would come into per se. One lady really did come in and going up the steps. It's a very open dining room. And she slipped. She had on beautiful high heels, like Louboutins, and she slipped and fell. And it was humiliating, and she was crushed. You know, like this is like their J-Lo was sitting over there, like not even kidding. Like the room is just like stacked full of famous people, and she's like this woman who's falling. And she was trying to carry on and muster, and I happen to be the back server for that table, and I'm I don't have a persona that I put on when I wait tables just like this. My vernacular changes, and like the way I talk about food is very impassioned, but I still deliver it with this same genuine feeling of like, hey, I'm a real person. Like it might seem like J-Lo's not a real person, but I was like, but I'm a real person. And I literally just was like, oh my God, are you okay? Like just a real, like what I would want my friend to say to me if I had fallen in front of J-Lo, you know? Like, don't give them the like hospitality version of it. And I swear to God, and this might be lofty of me, but I taught them how to have a softer service style, because when I came in, I was terrified and I was not supposed to be there. And I was almost fired so many times. And it ended up being like that I was the great connector of like, if there was a guest that was not getting it. And you know what I mean? Where it's like everything's going well for them, but somehow they're not feeling it. I was like the ambulance that went in to help get them like acclimated. And that I think
so you influenced the culture,
yes,
and the operations of a world-renowned restaurant by just being yourself.
That's right. I think we all do.
Awesome. That really makes me feel good. That makes me really happy. Honestly, it does.
But we all do, right, Kyle? Like, I mean, that's what it is. That's the fabric. There's someone that someone can connect with on the staff. And if you've hired right, and if you've trained your staff right, and if you've let people be themselves, there will be that beautiful fabric of people who can be on kind of all levels and you can put them where they go so that anybody can come in and feel at ease, like they really are welcome. There's such a big difference in that, I think.
Like I really believe that we do that here in my business, but I think you should come and see it, validate it.
I would love to.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I would love.
Yeah, because you were like, I only stay in hotels if I can afford to. It's free.
Right.
You just have to find your way here, I suppose. You can hitchhike, and then you're free once.
Oh my God, are you serious? I will do that. I stayed. We could stay in Relais and Chateau properties for like $50, and so I did that a couple times when I worked for the Thomas Keller Restaurant Group, and I loved it. I mean, I loved it. Like, I was absolutely enamored by it. But I will say that, as with anything, some people do it better than others. And I feel like just from talking to you guys, that I know that you run a really compassionate, polished, approachable type of luxury experience. And I would love.
Yeah, like we're just a run of the, like, we have a hotel in Reading, Pennsylvania, which you probably never heard of before in your life.
I've heard of Reading, Pennsylvania. But what's the hotel?
It's a double. It's the only hotel, basically. It's a DoubleTree by Hilton.
I love that
hotel. So we're in basically a marginalized community with this hotel, and the goal is to use the hotel as a vehicle to revitalize the community. So we hire walk to work employees. We hire second chance people who've been incarcerated, battered women.
Oh my God.
Recovering drug addicts. So we have this whole culture of second chance here. And so a lot of the people that you interact with, like, you may not know it, but they've served time in prison, and then you fall in love with them through hospitality. And we've won a lot of awards. And
that's making me emotional. That's amazing.
You should watch our documentary film about that.
How do I watch it?
So right now, actually, it's the perfect time for you to ask that question.
And by the way, shameless plug, we have a documentary film.
We have this announcement that we have, as of today's recording, released our feature-length documentary on YouTube for free for all to see forever. Check it out on the HospitalityMD YouTube channel, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation with EffinB Radio. We are live every Tuesday and Thursday for the PM shift with HospitalityMD Season 2. I'm dating myself in this recording now because 2 years later, this is not going to matter. But Season 2 of the PM shift is dropping in late March.
Of 2020.
I'm so excited. If you guys haven't seen our documentary, check it out. It's available now on our channel. I'm going to send Lindsay a link to the documentary after the show so that
I'm so excited. I'm genuinely so excited. This sounds amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So Lindsay, before Tom just kicks you off, you want to go ahead and plug where people can find you?
Yeah. Where can people find you? Thank you, Greg.
You can find me. Thank you. My podcast is on all podcast platforms. It's called EffinB Radio, and it's a visual pun. It's very confusing and not well thought out, but it's EffinB Radio. So it's EffinB. But yeah, I'm in Charleston. I'm doing a lot more like live events and comedy and things like that. So you can find me doing a bunch of different things. But on Instagram, it's at EffinB Radio, EffinB Radio, and you can kind of catch all the things from Insta. But thank you. You guys are the best. This was really, really fun. I was like trying to be cool at the beginning, be like, I got to wrap by 9:15, and then I'm just talking for more because I just enjoy your company. So thank you.
Oh, perfect.
That was nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we enjoy having you on. And I love the name of the podcast. I think it's clever.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that hooked me was like, that's a really great name. Let me listen to this.
Yeah.
I think
the industry.
I had to say it out loud.
I mean, for the longest time, they'd be like, "Thanks for reaching out, or EffinB Radio or EffinB Radio." They just could never get it right. It was just so awkward. I almost changed it, and then now it's people have finally figured.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good name.
All right, guys. Bye, everybody. We'll catch you on the next adventure.